Good morning, everyone. I hope the students have already learned a lot from the past training session. Today, we will be talking about tools and techniques in scientific writing, which can make your writing a little more effective. Now, the essence of effective scientific writing is to deepen the understanding of the field, okay, and contribute to enhance the existing knowledge. Once you decide that you have to contribute to a specific field, you need to identify a research question. So these are the three preliminary steps before you start writing a scientific communication. Now there are important aspects how to make your writing coherent and scientific. So for any kind of communication, you should always remember that it has to be audience oriented. You should know who your reader is. For us, the main readers are scientists, researchers, students. So we know that they are aware of the basic knowledge in the field. So when you start writing, please do not write about established definitions, standardized protocols or processes. Okay? That will unnecessarily make your writing look unprofessional. Next thing that you should keep in mind is your writing should be logical. It should have rationality in presentation. You are writing something, it should have evidence, it should have meaning, and it should be logical to the readers. And please remember that do not make it lengthy unnecessarily. You need to give all the information, that is, you need to have accurate information presented in your article, that is called as precision, and it has to be short, that is concise. All the information presented in minimum number of words. The last most important thing in a scientific communication is connectivity, just like the connectivity of these wheels. So we should write in a flow. It should look like that one section is actually leading to the other. It is not pieces of discrete information gathered from different research articles and then just put together. It should have a meaning which leads to the next section of the writing. Now, how do we differentiate between scientific writing and general writing, like poetry writing or literature writing? In literature, language is very important. Okay, it should be appealing. Whereas in case of scientific writing, it should be simple and logical. Please avoid redundancy. That means do not repeat the same facts, same sentences in one section and then in other section. So that makes your review unnecessarily lengthy and the reader loses interest. Language, please do not use very flowery language. Often we are under the impression that if we need to appeal to the readers, we need to use sophisticated words. So what we do, we try to replace the common words using uncommon sophisticated words. So we hope that that will make us look smart, but that does not happen in scientific writing. So please do not do that. Okay? Make it simple. The sentences should be short and meaningful, and obviously grammatically correct. Ambiguity. That means in one section of the review, you are saying something, whereas in the next section, you are saying just something different, which is contradicting the earlier point. Now, it can happen in a review that you are presenting two contradictory opinions from different research groups, but you will have to present that without introducing ambiguity in your writing. So how to do that? So you say that phenomena X was observed by research group 1, 2, 3, whereas the contradictory phenomena Y is observed by research group 4, 5, 6. So here, once the reader reads that, he or she understands that you are trying to objectively bring out the contradictions in the field without introducing any more ambiguity, without confusing the readers. Okay. And the last one is superfluous statements. That means the statements which claim bigger than actually what it is. So you should always avoid superfluous statements. Statements should always be evidence-based. That will only make your writing objective. Okay. Now, how to organize your scientific writing? Now, we have in earlier sessions discussed about systematic reviews and narrative reviews. For many journals, systematic review organization actually closely mimic that of the research article. So you will have sections like introduction, or they can say call it background, followed by data, methods, then results, discussion, and conclusion. While you start writing with the introduction. Okay, and you are trying to put relevant literature, right, in the introduction section. So in the beginning, try to make it broad so that even someone who is not particularly from that field can even understand what the review is about. So imagine the introduction to be the beginning of a funnel-shaped structure where you are trying to keep the context broad at the beginning and then slowly narrowing down towards the existing knowledge gap. So when you start reading more and more articles, you will realize that there are some questions which are still unanswered in the field. People have still not well understood those. And there could even be some contradictions in the field. So that will help you to identify the research problem. So you are narrowing down. And once you have identified the research problem, you would now stress upon what is the implication of your study, why or how your study will bring about bridging those knowledge gaps, or how will you try to answer the problem identified. Okay, so the end of the introduction should be implication or the importance of the study. Next, we move on to the methods section. Majorly for reviews, the authors have not performed the action. So what they are trying to compare is the methods of others, that is the cited references. So they will bring out the usual study system, and you should always bring out if there is a difference in the study system. Let's say 1 or 2 research groups have used some unique study system, which have not been used by others. Does it have any kind of preference, or does it have any kind of added advantage? Okay, so that you should be bringing about. And obviously, we should always ensure to cite those methods which have been replicable by others, which have been replicated by others. Okay. Now we will come to the results. What is the result? Result is the findings of all these studies presented coherently, objectively. Coherently means together in a form of a complete process. So let's say there is a process which has 10 different steps, and these 10 different steps have been proven by 10 different groups. So while we are reviewing, we will put the findings of all these 10 different groups and try to present it to the readers as a complete process. So in this case, it becomes very important that we represent the results very effectively. So how do we represent results? Usual format, one of the format is to present in a tabular format. You give tables citing each paper who have found a particular result. It can even be presented graphically. If you have a lot of numerical data available from different research groups, you can present it in the form of bar graph or charts, anything. But if you are presenting a biological process, let's say how chloroquine is supposed to mitigate COVID-19. So this is again a controversial field. So how would you approach that problem? You would first bring about what all is the observation of different clinical results, and then we'll try to project it schematically, highlighting those parts where you think the chloroquine has acted. So all those parts which have been shown by others where chloroquine is supposedly acting, those parts you will be highlighting. So you will be presenting the complete picture to the reader by taking out the results of different articles. Discussion. Here you are interpreting the results, where you should emphasize upon contradictions in the field. If there is any diversion, some kind of new finding, that you should mention, and obviously knowledge gap you are trying to answer. So while we are at the introduction section, we are at the beginning of the funnel, then we try to identify the knowledge gap, and then we moved towards action taken. What is the action taken? Action taken is the methods and the results. Okay, that means the studies we have followed or the results we have found. Now here we are at the discussion section. Once we start discussing these results, we are again trying to broaden our perspective. We are trying to link our findings with the existing field. Okay, so the analysis part. Analysis part again broadens out the perspective of the reader. And while we are giving resolutions, that is, how to solve those existing knowledge gaps, how to bridge those gaps, or how to mitigate those contradictions, again, we are trying to broaden the perspective of the reader. So we have narrowed down till here, and then again started broadening our discussion from discussion and conclusion section. So please do not think that conclusion is just putting the findings of the knowledge. It is about connecting the existing knowledge. Okay, you will obviously put the findings, that is your complete study, what they have contributed in. That should always be the first. And then you should try to connect to existing knowledge. How your study has contributed to fill the knowledge gap. And always open up with new scientific question. That means you are keeping the perspective broad. We are here now. Every scientific communication opens with a broader question. Okay, it should never be a closed study. Now, when we come to narrative reviews, we will see that the methods and results sections may not be there. Okay, even the introduction and discussion could sometimes be merged. But this hourglass structure of organization remains conserved, which means you should always start with a broader literature review and background information, narrow it down to problem identification, imply what is your study or your article about, and then you can make subsections of the introduction. Once you have identified the research question, you make subsections of the introduction. All these subsections should be oriented towards identifying or answering the identified problem, filling up the knowledge gap, or bringing out the contradictions. Okay, so At the end of the introduction, you present your opinion, that is author's opinion. So that's how we start broad and then narrow it down towards here by giving the author's opinion. And then we start about our conclusion, which is again, we are broadening the perspective. That is, we are connecting to existing knowledge and filling up the knowledge gap, how this study has led to an open question. Now, while writing, it is always important to start with introduction. But remember, in every article, there are sections before introduction, which is the abstract. Abstract is the shortest and the most important reflection of the scientific communication. It should, in 200 to 250 words, give the reviewer complete idea about the paper. So once you have written the complete paper, then go for abstract writing, because it has to be excessively precise and concise. Okay. These days, journals are also insisting on graphical abstract. That is, you present the entire finding or the process which you are concentrating on in the form of a schematic. Like I said about the chloroquine, the entire process has to be given in the form of a schematic diagram. So once the reader just looks at the schematic, he or she understands what the review article is about. And always remember, science is built on the existing knowledge. So reference is a very important part of any scientific communication. Please remember to cite the articles which have actually contributed to our study. Therefore, reference management is a big task. Earlier training sessions, you have learned about Mendeley Desktop, Reference Manager, EndNote. These are the easier ways of making a database of the references you are citing, and easy way of citing them also. Okay, that is the way you acknowledge the actual research articles or authors. Now, you are the reviewer. You should have the power to evaluate the studies which you are incorporating in your article. Whether the article has been logically written or not. Whether the sample size which they have taken is enough to conclude the study or not. How the research study is bringing about clarity in the research field. The methods that they have used is sufficient or appropriate or not. So as a reviewer, you should be able to analyze these. Okay? You should be able to say whether the author has been biased, okay, or the source which they have taken is not appropriate. They had some preconceived notions or not before concluding a study. So depending upon all these evaluations, you would need to choose the articles which you are citing in your reviews. Please take those reviews or those research articles which fill the criteria of logical, evidence-based writing. Try to avoid those articles which you think are biased or based on preconceived notions. So this much about the techniques of writing. Now, how to go about choosing the journals. Now, let's say you have already completed the abstract writing. That means you are towards ending the review writing process. Where would you submit? Always ensure that your journal should be listed in UGC-care, that is Consortium for Academic and Research Ethics. And UGC-care says that all those research articles which are there in Web of Science or Scopus, these are the two list of indexed journals, Web of Science or Scopus, they are automatically there in the UGC-care list. Okay. So if you need to check whether your journals are there in the Web of Science or not. So how do you check? There is website, that is mjl.clarivate.com. Okay. So here you can actually search for the journal. You can give the ISSN number or the journal name and search whether that journal is actually present or not in the Web of Science. So we'll come to know. You want to see whether your manuscript needs to be submitted to a particular journal or not, but you don't know what journal it is. So how do you find an appropriate journal as per the review? There is something called as manuscript matcher, again by Web of Science. You see here it is manuscript match. So if you click there, it will come up. There you can put the title and the abstract of your study and then say find journals. It will automatically find the journals. Similar basis, that is another list of indexed journal is Scopus. The website is scimagojr.com, and here also they give you the facility to either search whether the journal is present in Scopus listing or not, and they also come up, they will give you the idea of whether it is present or not. So next you need to find where to publish, which journal will be appropriate. So you will go to, let's say you are trying to find out ELSEVIER journals. Okay, ELSEVIER is a big publishing group, so they give a tool called as Journal Finder. So there you paste the title, abstract, and it will find the appropriate journals for you. Okay, so this is the journal. It's not ready to go back. Okay, let's see. Another is Springer Nature Journal Suggester. So Springer also comes with journal name suggester, similar to ELSEVIER, another publishing group. Wiley, they have similar tool known as Finder Beta. So there you go and write Wiley Finder Beta, and you can search the journal with the name of manuscript title or abstract. There is one more site known as Journal Author Name Estimator, that is Jane. So here also you can find about you can give your abstract and title and you can find the journals. It is very important these days to be avoiding the predatory journals. Many illegitimate journals are coming up. Okay, so you should always avoid those. How to know about the predatory journals? There is actually a website for that. It's known as predatoryjournals.com. So just give your journal name in that and try to see if it is all coming up or not. So if it's coming up, that's not a good news. Okay. Another list is called as Bayal's list. Bayal's was the librarian who compiled the list of predatory journal. Okay, so it's known as bayalslist.net. So that also gives the list of predatory journals. Always avoid these. Now let's say you have made a very significant finding, but you still need some time to reach to conclusions, and at the same time you are scared that nobody else should be publishing your study. So what to do to safeguard your discovery or study. There is something called as archive.org. It's a preprint server. So before it goes for actual publication, you can upload your study over here and it will be kind of indexed in your name. Okay. So before going to the actual publication, you can go for archive.org. Those are for actual research articles, not for review writing. Okay, so I'm coming towards the end of my presentation. Now, most of the contents have been taken from UNKC Writing Studio. So they give different writing techniques. There are other studies. One is very important, that is 10 Simple Rules of Review Literature. It came up in 2013 in PLOS Computational Biology. Another is Scientific Writing Made Easy. Okay, a step-by-step guide to undergraduate writing in biological sciences. It came out in 2016 in Bulletin of Ecological Study of America. So just like this, I have taken my content from these studies. You also should actually cite the references from where you are taking your content. Thank you so much for your attention.